Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Cinema Hooked. My name is Chris. Thank you for tuning into the channel. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I will be reviewing movies, TV shows, sometimes video games, news that's breaking on new movies coming out, or TV shows. Today, I am here to talk about James Gunn's Superman movie. I've had lots of thoughts, and I've had 2 weeks to mull it all over and think about what I want to say, how I want to say it, where I want to say it, because while I had this YouTube channel, I wasn't using it. So lately I was like, well, I had a lot of extra time on my hands and I thought, let's get back into YouTube creation. So let's just jump right into the Superman movie. So one thing I loved about this movie was how it just jumped us right into the movie. You know, it had the Arctic there and, you know, it had the title cards, kind of like a Star Wars movie or even like a Terminator movie back in the day. But basically they've known about metahumans for hundreds of years. 30 years ago, Superman landed on the planet. 3 years ago, Superman revealed himself to the world, and today he just lost his first fight, crashed into the snow, totally beaten up by the Hammer of Baravia, which we'll get into that later, where Krypto comes and saves him, which the initial teaser trailer for this movie, when it had that scene, I got super emotional. As you can see, I'm wearing my Krypto shirt that my amazing wife Anna got me. So Krypto, the dog, I mean, hooked immediately. Super excited about this movie because the closest I've come to Krypto in Superman Legacies, you know, other live action media would be Smallville, which they teased that they were going to name the dog Krypto, but they ended up naming it Shelby. That's a whole nother thing. So this was like actually Krypto. We actually have the flying dog, you know, that's got superpowers. So super excited about that. Love Krypto. Love that little scene with them. Going to the fortress. The fortress looks amazing, by the way. I think this might be my favorite version of the Fortress of Solitude that I've seen in Superman media before. He gets healed at the fortress, which I did like that scene with the Superman robots where they have the magnifying glasses for the sun to try and heal Superman. One reason I really liked this scene was because when it got teased, when it got released online in a little teaser, there were so many fans out there that were complaining about like, oh, the sun hurting Superman, like that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. James Gunn doesn't know Superman, blah, 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 blah. Stupid. What I loved about the scene was as those UV rays are hitting him, you can hear, first of all, you heard about all of his injuries before they unleashed the sun on him. So he's got tons of fractures, broken bones. He had internal bleeding, like his organs were failing. So when that sun hits him, you hear everything cracking, popping back into place, bones healing. So it's cool to see like that's why like he wasn't being hurt by the sun. He was in pain from the healing from the sun. So I like that little detail, and it kind of shut those, again, fans up. We won't talk about them. Anyways, moving on. Flies back to Metropolis, kind of gets his ass handed to him again by the Hammer of Baravia, which we see him fly off, and then he goes through a portal, which is about, I think they said like 12 miles off the, edge of Metropolis at this beach, and goes through what we eventually find out is a pocket dimension, and then he ends up in Lex's little super tower building, which is really cool, by the way, that building, because when it gets towards the end of the movie, when it detaches from those two towers, really cool, really cool. Lex has style, I'll give him that. So yeah, Hammer of Baravia, and then we find out it's just Ultraman. So moving on from that, we've got Clark Kent at the Daily Planet giving his own interviews where he's interviewing himself, giving himself his own answers, which Lois doesn't really like. You can see her kind of poking fun at him. And we move forward and we've got the Clark and Lois scene. That's what I really liked. The Clark and Lois scene in her apartment where she comes home and he's surprising her with breakfast because she loves breakfast, but actually he loves breakfast, but that's okay. And he agrees to let Lois Lane interview Superman. And James Gunn came out and said that this scene was the biggest risk that he took with this movie. And I get why he's saying that, because a 12-minute scene of just two people talking in a superhero action movie where, you want explosions and laser beams and aliens and spaceships and stuff like that. A 12-minute talking scene with two characters can be pretty boring, but I would argue that it's if it's not the best scene in the movie, it's definitely one of the best scenes in the movie. So absolutely loved it. The chemistry between David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan was just amazing. Just absolute amazing chemistry. Those casting choices were just incredible. They end up not necessarily getting into a fight, but Clark's obviously frustrated, decides to leave, goes off and does his own thing. Fast forwarding, we do eventually meet the Justice Gang, which is cool. So Lex is trying to come up with an idea to try and get to Superman. They found out where his fortress is, but now they need to get into the fortress. So they create a distraction. He's distracted in downtown Metropolis. And then we've got Lex flying off to the Arctic with Tessmacher, and he's got Ultraman with him. And this was one thing that it was cool, but I immediately knew, and spoiler alert, I knew Ultraman was Superman clone. I thought it was obvious, personally, for me, just reading lots of Superman comics, all the shows, animated shows, or live action shows, even like Smallville, Superman and Lois, Adventures of Lois and Clark back in the day when I was a kid. It just seemed obvious. They're walking up to the fortress and it opened up, and I was like, well, he's got his DNA. And since we're not seeing his face, it just seemed kind of obvious. There's a reason we don't see his face. So when that bomb dropped later in the movie, I really wasn't surprised by it. That was fine. I'm not like downgrading the Ultraman thing by any means. I personally thought it was obvious. The 4 friends I saw it with, they were like, I didn't even think about that. So that's just me overthinking while being seated in the movie theater, but whatever. Moving on, we go back to the fight in Metropolis. We've got the Justice Gang, so we meet Hawkgirl, we meet Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, which I really loved, all 3 of them. I thought the chemistry between all of them and Superman was really great. Superman saving the dog. Love the fact that he saved the dog. Me being a crypto fan and obviously a dog person, absolutely love that with him using the super breath to just push the dog away. Thought that was great. Saving the squirrel. It was just really great to see that how much he just appreciates life and will do anything he can to protect life. Just all life, not just humans, not just aliens like himself. But, a squirrel. Who cares about a squirrel? They're really cute animals, but the whole city's in danger right here, and he goes out of his way to save this little squirrel. And I think that was awesome. I thought that was absolutely awesome. Some people were like, that was so stupid. I'm like, well, maybe you should just not be too adult when you're watching, a Superman film, because at the end of the day, this kind of is a kid's movie. So the Justice Gang, they get there, they end up killing that monster alien. They don't really explain exactly what it was. Superman was interested in finding out what it was, but the Justice Gang just wanted to end it and put it down. Mr. Terrific throws his little spheres into it. T-spheres, there you go, T-spheres, which I loved that he called him that in the movie, because I knew that just from watching the Arrow show. That was my first introduction to Mr. Terrific. Obviously a different version of Mr. Terrific, but he called him his T-spheres. I was like, this is T-spheres. So I really loved that. That was really cool. The chemistry with Guy Gardner, obviously a very abrasive, kind of rude, jerk-off character, but that's exactly who he's supposed to be. The fight ends, but then that's when we get the big bomb, While all that was going on, you've got Lex in the Fortress of Solitude, destroy all the Superman robots, and they hack in to his, kind of data center there, and they decode his parents' message, which was basically saying, rule over Earth, they're weak, take as many wives as you can. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. We don't need to go over it word for word, but basically kind of made it sound like Superman was going to be an invader and he was going to rule the human race. And people are pointing at him, they're keeping their children from him. It was a real quick flip. If Superman were alive, if you were real in this world and we've been worshiping him, we think he's the best thing ever, would just seeing a little clip would be something to be like, I don't know, man. I don't know about this guy. I don't know. Maybe we would. Sometimes we see a report about someone online, allegations or something, we're like, oh, scumbag, canceled. So maybe that was a realistic take. now thinking about it in this day and age, yeah, people probably would have reacted, instantly. Like, oh, Superman sucks. Hashtag super shit. So he keeps his cool, really. And this is the cool thing about Superman, because other people might get like angry or upset. Maybe he just flies away, goes back to the Arctic. But he goes into what looked like it was maybe a bank or something like that, and just kind of trying to collect his thoughts, take a breath. Justice Gang comes in, Guy Gardner, which I thought was really cool. Just like greens out the window so nobody can see in. And they're talking about the message, and that's when Clark realizes the only way they could have gotten that message is if they're in his Fortress of Solitude. So he flies there, sees the destruction, sees that Krypto's gone, and oh man, the scene with him just busting through Lex's door, I thought that was so cool. And he's all, where's the dog? I thought that was really awesome. Just because, if you have a dog, you understand. Like, you don't mess with someone's dog. And we find out it's not even his dog. And we'll get into whose dog it is later. But he's just so passionate about getting this dog back. And Lex is obviously uncooperative. And, he whispers in his dream, stupid dog with a cape, or whatever exactly he said. There was something about a dog in a cape. Superman leaves because he sees Tessmacher's filming it. And he flies off. And that's when we get the scene where him and Lois are, I'm thinking in Clark's place, because earlier in the movie we see he's in Lois's place, and it didn't seem like it was the same place, but I'm not sure whose apartment, condo they were in. But that scene was really great, while in the background, kind of comedically, and it worked, was this big interdimensional being, which made me think of like Mixolydic. So I thought that was like a cool little like tease for that. But you can see, green, oh my God, Green Lantern, not Green Arrow, Green Lantern. You can see his green beam, trying to do the monster. But you've got Superman and Lois having this really nice conversation. And what I really liked about it was kind of towards the end, all this like about a dog. And he's like, yeah, not even a good dog at that. The fact that it's not even a good dog. He's like, but he's out there somewhere, and he's alone, and he's afraid, and, basically I need to go save him. So he decides he's going to turn himself in. Now we get Superman turning himself in because it's the only way he can get to Krypto, because Lex obviously is not going to tell him where he's keeping him. So turns himself in. That's where we see the part from the trailer where Ultraman just slams his face into the concrete. And they march him off to that little beach or island I was talking about that's 12 miles off the coast of Metropolis. And they take him through the pocket dimension. And there he has his nice tour guide, Lex, which I'm still unclear what that thing was that was like operating that little apparatus, ship, thing. It looked like an alien. I don't know if that's come out, like what that was, who that was. I didn't particularly recognize it from any comics or other media, but it looked really interesting. But that's an alien driving us. Don't worry about it. You're an alien too. Anyways, they take him to his cell. And that's when we meet Metamorpho, who was played really, really incredibly by Anthony Carrigan, who I had seen way back that he'd gotten cast in the movie, but I didn't realize it was for Metamorpho. So when I'm watching the scene, I didn't realize who it was I was watching, but I mostly know him from the Gotham series where he played Victor Zsasz, a pretty recognizable actor, given that he's got alopecia, which I didn't know until like a week ago. I had no idea. I thought it was just a choice that actor just liked having the shaved head and eyebrows and stuff. I never even questioned it. Just thought, wow, he's good in everything he is, and they always have him with the shaved head and stuff. He's just typecast as bald badass, He was also in the show Barry, which he's really great in the show Barry, which I need to finish now that I'm thinking about it. Back to the movie. We meet Metamorpho, and Lex has him give a little demonstration to Superman as to what exactly it is he does. And he's able to form kryptonite. He takes his hand and he just forms kryptonite, which obviously disables Superman. And that's when things get really dark. Also, on the way to this cell, we did see Krypto, who was locked up in a container and basically chasing flying squirrels, I think it was. So that, it was cute, but it was kind of messed up because he also said we're going to put the thing down, or the mutt, however he phrased it. But it's like, dude, come on, you're going to kill the dog? Don't kill the dog. Please, just, Lex, don't kill dogs. Just don't kill. It's, good way to live, So we're in the cell with Metamorpho, and that's when we see that Metamorpho's child, Joey, is being held hostage, basically. And that's why Metamorpho is doing this. He has to do it because otherwise they're going to kill his son. Lex comes in for questioning with the president of Bravia, and that's when things take a very, very dark turn. So they're questioning him. He's doing a little Russian roulette, like, questioning him. He's like, wanting to know everything about him. Where does he come from? Who raised him? All this stuff. And he's telling the guy, and it's this guy that once gave Superman some falafel for free, And earlier in the movie, we saw this same guy check in on Superman, and he was making sure he was okay after Ultraman threw him down, the War of Baravia. The Hammer of Baravia, I'm sorry. And throws him down, crashes through the ground. The guy checks on him. Are you okay, Superman? They bring him in, and, they're questioning him. He's questioning Superman. Superman's not going to answer. And the guy's like, don't worry. I don't have any family. I don't have any friends. Like, I'm not losing anything. You're a hero to me. Obviously the camera panned out for this shot, but I was not expecting to see someone get shot in the head in a Superman movie. I literally in the theater I was like, huh? What? That just happened? What? I was shocked that they did that. I was like, oh dang, Lex don't mess around. That was super serious. And then Metamorpho, he just like, I can't believe that I sat here and I watched this happen. I let this happen. I'm hurting you, Superman, who saved, at this point, 3 years into it, I'm sure he saved tens of thousands of lives and prevented tons of disasters. And Metamorpho knows who Superman, everyone knows who Superman is who lives on Earth. Basically he's like, could you save Joey? And he said, yeah. And so he puts the kryptonite away, and this was like, it's like a serious scene, but Anthony Carrigan, his line deliveries were very, very comical. Even though it was like a serious scene, it was funny at the same time, because he's like, why do you still look like that? Because he's got like his face is all swollen and stuff, and he tells him, I need the sun, and he's like, there's no sun here. So he does that. He's combining different elements and stuff to create a chemical reaction, which is like getting, sun rays, UV rays to help power him. So, but it powers him up enough to where he's able to saves him, and then we've got the, because we basically have a singularity, we have a black hole down here, and there's this river that's flowing through there, and I can't exactly remember what Mr. Terrific referred to it as, but they're making their getaway now. Meanwhile, while all this was happening, Lois went to the Justice Gang to try and ask for help. Guy Gardner, being the jerk that he is, he didn't want to help. Hot Girl, she couldn't have cared less. The Guy Gardner and Lois interactions were really good, though, when they're talking about like who Superman is. He's like, so you do know, you don't know? It's like, well, it's his hypno glasses or whatever. It's like, so you know it's Clark Kent. She's like, oh my God. It's like, what if she didn't know? It's like, he was just like, oh yeah, it's Clark Kent. She's like, ah. I love that scene. I thought it was really funny. She leaves, tries to guilt trip him, gives him, flack about the haircut, which in the movie, the hair didn't look as bad as it did when like they were releasing images and clips and stuff like that. Like, it's still a cheesy haircut, but it looked cooler in the movie than it did in any images that were being released online. Mr. Terrific decides to help Lois. So he had this okay, so now we're getting into the Mr. Terrific stuff. We'll get back to the Superman escape, but this all goes hand in hand. Mr. Terrific and Lois go to that beach that's 12 miles away from Metropolis, and he uses the T-spheres that like had this little like video imprint, because he revealed to us, the audience, that he put nanotech inside of Superman so he can always trace where he's at. Probably doesn't have Superman's consent for that, but he should probably get it, just be polite. So you see these like little tracker marks where Superman walked through the tent. That's where it went dead. So like that's where we got to go. This fight scene on the beach was so amazing. The song choice was fun. I thought just everything about it was cool. Mr. Terrific was amazing. Like he was so cool in this scene, in this movie. I thought that he was played really great by Eddie Cathegi, and I loved it. I loved Mr. Terrific. Going into this movie, I was like, oh yeah, Mr. Terrific, I know him. He, that character, they used him in the Arrow show. Yeah, he's cool, whatever. But man, seeing him in this movie, he was so good in this movie. Standout performance, great character. I really love the actor. It was great to see him again because I hadn't seen him since X-Men First Class. And unfortunately, they killed him off in that movie, idiotically, because he was a really cool character. So it was really cool to see him come in this and get a really good role where I think he's eventually going to get some sort of either his own movie or at least like a series on Max, HBO Max now again. Wow, HBO Max. Glad they made that name change. Sorry, I digress. So they have the fight on the beach. They go into the pocket dimension, and that's when he uses the T-spheres, and he does the wide eye thing. His eyes turn white, like, all the fans have been clamoring for, the next Batman. They're like, why can't he have white eyes? They give Mr. Terrific the white eyes, and now everyone's back on the Batman should have white eyes too, which it did look really cool. So Superman's making his escape. When he flies to go save Krypto, he's holding Joey. It's such a small thing. I like small things, little details and stuff. But when he flies through the glass and he like slides on the ground and kind of he's like holding Joey, and he's like, I thought it was just really cool. I love the way that was filmed, the way that was shot, how he just did this little like slide move. I thought was really awesome. So they break Krypto out, and now they're just trying to get out of this place. And him getting sucked into the black hole and then Metamorpho, like using these they look like tentacles, grabbing Superman, trying to pull him out from the black hole. And he uses his super breath and he gets them all out of there. Super cool. But now there's a problem. Now they need to get out before they get sealed in there forever, or until someone would let them out, which, why would Lex ever let them out? He wouldn't. He wouldn't, because he's just that bad of a person, So they get out, and now, Superman's weak, so Mr. Terrific tells Lois, hey, take my ship, take him, I'm going to take care of this, I'm going to try and shut this down. So now we're at the Kent farm, which really great to see Ma and Pa Kent. Being a Smallville fan, I always like getting a little bit of Jonathan and Martha, and James Gunn really gave them that country, we talk slow and, but just salt of the earth, just super genuine, nice, loving people. And I love that little bits that we got with them. It was just enough, wasn't too much. I love the little talk that Pa Kent gave Clark when they're sitting on the bench, just looking at Krypto, playing with the cows. I did also love the scene when Superman Clark first wakes up in the bed and Krypto's just on his chest. I thought that was super cute. I was just like, oh, that's so cute. Like, that's just so cute, I love that scene. Like I said, I like the little bits. I like the little details. And that little bit with Krypto was really cute. That was really sweet. He basically finds out, that the president of Bravia, is going to try and invade Jaranpur again. And he's just like, blood in the streets, and we're armed, we're killing men, women, children, whatever. And, Superman's going to fly off and go do that. But then that's when Mr. Terrific calls, and he's like, hey, I need you in Metropolis, now, yesterday. I need you here because we got a problem. He's like, no, I have to go stop this war. He's like, no, there's not going to be a world if you don't get here right now. So he goes to Metropolis to try and stop this, black hole that's basically just about to, envelop the entire planet. And what was really cool is you see the Justice Gang show up at the border of Bravia and Jaranpur, and it's got the kid holding the flag and they're chanting Superman. And I love Guy Gardner, just like, sorry kid, Superman couldn't make it, you just got an upgrade. And I thought that was so cool. I really liked Guy Gardner. Just the way he was, I thought he was funny. abrasive and he's rude and he's dickish, but he was funny. And I really enjoyed that. Going back to Metropolis, though, talking about the Metropolis fight, you got Superman and you got Ultraman fighting. So let's get into that big fight that took place at the baseball stadium. Ultraman, the Engineer, Mr. Terrific, Superman, we're all fighting now. And, Superman gets a pretty hard kick to the groin from Ultraman, sends him plummeting down into a baseball stadium outfield. And the fight ensues. Everyone's kind of taking their blows. Superman gets knocked down to the ground, and then that's when the Engineer does her thing and just completely envelops Superman down into his lungs, all over nanotechnology, and completely covers him. And he's struggling. You can see him trying to stand up. He's disoriented, can't hear anything, can't see anything, and he just takes up into the sky, and he's just flying straight up as fast as he can. And so Lex is like, chase after him. So Ultraman, the Engineer, they're flying up after him, trying to get to him. They do get to him. He basically takes him to the, outer reaches of space, and then just turns and just plummets straight back down to the surface of Metropolis. And Ultraman's just beating the heck out of him, trying to just get him to stop or whatever. The Engineer, she doesn't let go. They end up crashing. We find out that her heart is still beating. So a character that we'll probably see more of again. What I would have liked to see, I thought it would have been really cool just to, not that we didn't see enough of this from Superman, but they said her heart was beating. If we actually see him resuscitate her, I thought that would have been cool. It's here's this, person who was trying to kill me, but I care so much about life. I can save her, and I'm not going to just let her die. Even though her actions brought her here, I'm not just going to let someone die. That's when we get the Ultraman reveal. Oh, I'm the clone of Clark Kent / Superman. I'm a clone. Not a shocker to me. Oh, and I talked about how earlier it was obvious to me when they went to the fortress and, the fortress revealed itself to Lex, Ultraman, and the Engineer, and Tess. Was when they're on the beach walking to that pocket dimension place when, Superman's, arrested and they're first going there. Him and Ultraman are just walking perfectly in sync. And I know that James Gunn, that was a detail he wanted. Maybe some people will notice, maybe some people won't. I noticed, James. I noticed. I saw that. I saw what you did. And they're just walking perfectly in sync with each other. And obviously they got a stunt actor who's got the same exact build as David Cornsweet. And they got them walking perfectly in sync. And I noticed that. That was really cool. But we get the big reveal. And then boom, huge fight ensues. Now we're fighting. We're going below where the big huge crack is, where we've got this black hole that's basically destroying the entire planet. And they're fighting, and, heat vision, which was really cool seeing Ultraman just heat vision Superman like that was really cool. But Superman comes back. He ends up winning. I like it when he starts, giving Ultraman his licks and he just throws him down to the surface. Really, really cool. He eventually ends up winning the fight. That bus is coming down and then boom, the bus takes him down and boom. So he's probably off in some other universe. I guarantee that character comes back somehow. Kind of felt bad for him in a way because he was this clone that Lex had created from, a hair that he found at a fight scene of Superman's from one of the previous 3 years. But he defeats him. And it's now we got to actually stop this event that's happening. So Mr. Terrific, Superman, they fly up to Lex's tower, and everything about this scene was just incredible. Everyone's performance was great. The way Lex was going off on Superman, the way Superman starts talking to Lex and talking about what it is to be human. I loved this scene. Well, now we're in for one of the best parts of the movie, in my opinion, because the little exchange we get between Lex and Superman, I think is just great. Lex talks about breaks down to just how envious and jealous he is of Superman, and he doesn't think the Superman's earned it. But then Superman's rebuttal to that is just so great, and I thought the writing here was really great. This little speech that, Clark gives, because at the end of the day, he was raised by humans. His ideology, how he thinks, how he cares for other people of the world, he is human. Yes, he's an alien, but his temperament, his personality, the way he looks at life, looks at the world, he's human. He says, I'm as human as anyone. I love, I get scared, I wake up every morning, and despite not knowing what to do, I put one foot in front of the other and I make the best choices that I can. And I mess up all the time, and that is being human, and that's my greatest strength. And I I love that line. I thought that line was just brilliant. I loved it. And then Lex is like, oh, you, and before he can even like rattle off his next thing, here comes Crypto just beats the living S out of Lex. And it's like, how's Lex alive right now? Because that dog just destroyed him. I mean, I was laughing. You know, he had this really serious moment, this great writing. I really loved it. Then here comes Crypto. Nice, you know, comedic scene. It was comedic. It really gave me the vibes of Loki and Hulk in the first Avengers movie, with Hulk just freaking smashing Loki on the ground. Crypto was just taking him to town. You know, Mr. Terrific ends up, you know, sealing the rift with the black hole. Lex gets arrested. You know, everything's good now. You know, the world was saved. You know, then we get that really sweet moment where Lois asks Superman, like, oh, I can finish that interview now. And they go off in that little spot and they have their little floating in the air make out moment where, you know, just thinking about it chokes me up a little bit. But, you know, Clark telling her, you know, I love you, Lois, and I probably should have said that a long time ago. And I thought that was super sweet. It was a really nice moment. And then at the end, when we see him back at the fortress and he's with the robots, and, you know, he's got number 4, who he then names Gary, which Alan Tudyk, he's always typecast as voicing robots, you know, doing K2SO in the Star Wars franchises. But he was really great, you know, so he's Gary now. So look forward to seeing Gary again. But he says, oh, do you want us to put the footage of your parents on again? And while we essentially think it's going to be, you know, Jor-El and Lara, it ends up being Ma and Pa Kent, and it's just this little montage of all these moments of Clark growing up as a kid on the farm, and it's just this, just thinking about it, just like kind of chokes me up. But it's a really sweet moment where we get to kind of have a look at Clark's life, you know, being raised by Martha and Jonathan. I thought that was really great. And then, you know, we get the post-credit scenes, and I was kind of saving this for last because I'm super excited. I'm super excited for the Supergirl movie. I've been excited for the Supergirl movie ever since before they said there was a Supergirl movie, because I've been wanting one for, I don't know, the last 10, 15 years. I've just always wanted a good Supergirl movie. And while I enjoyed the Supergirl show, you know, it's entertaining, and I liked the little bit of Supergirl we got in the Smallville series, I just wanted a legitimate Supergirl film. I thought we might get that back in the Snyderverse. You know, Zack Snyder had kind of teased how Supergirl's pod was on the ship in Man of Steel, but, you know, that never went anywhere. That never panned out. I'm just really excited. And then they cast Millie Alcock, which I really liked that casting because she was in House of Dragon. And I really liked her in that. You know, she's only in it for a little bit, but her little bit that's in it, I thought she was really great. So seeing the little tease and seeing her drunk and Crypto just smashing her into the ground just repeatedly while she's just giggling and just taking it, I thought that was hilarious. She's just laughing, and Crypto's just like destroying her, just putting her into the ice. And, you know, Clark's like, you know, this is why Crypto has issues. Like, she allows this. So kind of hints about how she likes to visit planets with red suns and get drunk. So I know that movie is going to be based off Women of Tomorrow series, which I have ordered, not pre-ordered, because it's been out for a very long time, but I've never read it. I've read Supergirl comics, but I haven't read that particular story. So I am interested in reading about that, because I know there'll be tweaks and changes and stuff, because Lobo's supposed to be in her movie and Lobo's not in the Woman of Tomorrow comic. So it'll be really interesting, but I'm really excited. But, I mean, those are my thoughts on Superman. I mean, I really, really loved it. I mean, was it perfect? Is it a perfect movie? No, it's not a perfect movie. I mean, there's things I would change. You know, some of the visual effects were a little bit off here and there. Maybe I'd cut this scene. Maybe I would have added this scene. Maybe I would have shortened that. You know, just, yeah, there's little tweaks over it. But it's a solid 7.5 to 8. But as far as an enjoyment factor, I mean, I loved this movie. The second pre-orders went up online, I pre-ordered my steelbook because I love collecting 4K steelbooks. I have quite the collection in the other room. I pre-ordered the movie because I know, I want to get the first DCU steelbook movie. I want to collect the entire DCU. I didn't do it with the MCU. I have a lot of MCU, but I want to have all the DCU because at the end of the day, I am more of a DC Comics guy. I do love Marvel. I love the MCU just like most other people, you know, at least people who are into this kind of nerd culture. But I'm just excited, man. Like, you know, as of today, when I record this, the box office total is at 414 million. And while there'll be people out there saying that that's not enough, oh, they need to make at least 700 million to, it's just not true. You know, they had like a $220 million budget, like a $100 million budget for marketing. So we're at 320 million and they're at 414 right now. So they're making profit at this point. And being the first entry into this new DC universe, I think that that's good. It's got great word of mouth. It's getting great reviews from people. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. As a DC fan, I am super excited. And I think other people who are fans of DC should be excited, even if this movie wasn't exactly what you wanted it to be, because there are people who thought maybe it was a little too silly or something. Like, the fact that it's successful should at least give everyone hope that, like, we're going to get more DC content now. You know, like, this was a success. Had this flopped and just made like no money, that would have not been good. But it's making money. It's got great word of mouth because at the end of the day, I think, you know, the company would like to make money and also have great reviews than just make a ton of money and everyone hating it. And, you know, bad word of mouth. Nobody, like, you know what I mean? So that's what I think of the film. This went a lot longer than I thought it was, and that's why I wanted to start this channel, because I knew that I had so much to say, and maybe I'll try and make some shorter videos. And if you've watched this whole thing, I mean, kudos to you. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to give my thoughts and my opinion and talk about it, and hopefully we can continue the discussion on other platforms. You can check me out on Instagram at cinema.hooked and on the X app at Cinema Hooked. I would love to take the discussion off there or in the comment section here, but please subscribe. I know this is a young channel and I don't have many subscribers as of now, but I'm going to keep putting out the content, and I hopefully am entertaining enough to where you'd want to watch. And yeah, let's take the discussion offline and tell me what you guys thought of the movie. You know, did you love the movie? Did you hate the movie? What would you have changed? You know, I mean, like I said, it's not perfect, and I've got the stuff I would change, and I'm sure you've got stuff that you would change. So let me know. Please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next review.